a great job with that tricky thing with nor, right, where you have to change the wording of the second sentence. Good, so now number 2, a sentence with a coordinator, but no comma. It doesn't need the comma with the coordinator. So I had to leave early for I was getting late. So Emma, if I say we need a sentence with a coordinator, but the coordinator does not need a comma with it, what do you know you need to do? I don't know.
A sentence with a comma that has a coordinator with it. Oh,
Who knows this one? Yeah, sure.
both of them have to be independent, right?
Oh, yeah.
They all both have to have. They both have to be 2 sentences, right?
That's for number 1. Yes. But sometimes
They don't have to be.
So just one full sentence without a comma, it's not 2 separate sentences technically.
right. There are situations where you have a fanboy connecting words or ideas together where only one part is an independent clause. So either everything before the fanboy is an independent clause or everything after the fanboy is an independent clause, but they both aren't. Okay? So that's going to make more sense if we see an example. Because right now, what have we got right here in number 2?
I had to leave early for 2 incomplete sentences, right?
Yeah, I had to leave early, could stand alone. I was getting late, also could stand alone. So if we wanted to write this sentence, we would have to put a comma right here. But let's figure out an example sentence together where we use a fanboy, but we don't have to use a comma.
Fanboy. So today riding a bike or running can be an fun activity.
Ah, okay. Oops, not writing.
It was today riding a bike.
Oh, today, okay,
Sorry.
specifically today.
Yeah.
Today,
Riding a bike
riding a bike
or running can be a fun activity.
or running.
Can be a fun activity. Right?
Excellent, yes, so why
Okay.
no comma here with our or? In other words, where's my independent, where's my dependent clause?
Said no comma.
So that's one good reason.
Wait a minute.
Riding a bike is a dependent?
No comma doesn't.
Ooh, where are we running into confusion? Let's
It's
clear
like,
that.
it's one sentence, if you don't need, space.
Okay, so which part of the sentence could stand alone?
Riding a bike or running can be a fun activity.
Basically, here's our fanboy, right?
Right?
Here's our coordinator.
Right?
All of this,
Yeah,
independent or dependent?
independent.
Independent.
It could stand alone, right? Running
Right.
can be a fun activity. Running is our subject, can be is our verb.
Right?
What about today riding a bike?
Can't be.
No, dependent clause, right?
Right?
So therefore, since we have the fanboy connecting a dependent clause on one side to an independent clause on the other side,
It does
no
not work.
need for the comma.
No need for the comma. Right?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, good stuff. So number 3, who did number 3? I think it was Michael, right? Okay, so when you saw this, a sentence with a subordinate or dependent clause first, what did you know you had to do?
I had to make one part dependent and one part independent, and then use a comma.
Yeah, so how do you make one of those has dependent?
Adding the subordinator.
Yeah, so basically, I wanted you to see that this was the pattern here where the subordinator comes first. It's the very first word in the sentence.
So you,
So we have, because there is no class on Saturday, comma, the students stayed home. So Zarlash had a comma here where she wanted to dispute the tense of is, and you wanted to change it to was, right? So, why did you want to do that?
Because it's because there is no class on Saturday. Oh, the students stay home. But, cause it says stayed home.
Ah, okay, so you looked at this verb tense
Yeah.
here, right, past
Yeah.
tense, and so you thought, okay, well, we've got to have past tense here.
Yeah.
Now, I'm here to tell you that, depending on your meaning in the sentence, you could leave it at is, or you could change it to was. Now, what are the differences in that would bring up? Like, what would be the difference if I
Fact,
changed it to is
right?
or was?
The fact of was there or is there. Was is like a possibility and is this definite. I don't know, I didn't quite come out right, but you, in other words, one is stating the actual truth and the other one is conferring that it could be, or referring, or whatever you want to call it.
Or is already passed?
Implied, implied, there we go.
I think that's really, really close. The difference that I see here is if you were to say, because there was no class on Saturday, the student stayed home, it kind of sounds like usually there's class, but this day got canceled,
Yeah, yes.
right? If you say, because there is no class on Saturday, the student stayed home, it suggests that there's never class on Saturday, right? The weekend is always class-free. Does that make sense, the difference there?
Yeah.
Okay, so number 4 now, remind me who did number 4, okay. So here, a sentence with a subordinator where the independent clause comes first. So what did you think and know that you had to do in this situation?
I have no idea.
Well, you did it right, I'm here to tell you. So how did you do it right?
He did it right.
You got help from a neighbor. Okay, Morgan.
I was just gonna say she got 100% on the assignment because she studied, trying to do that, like, or did that, she finished it earlier.
Either one of those is equally as correct.
But, yeah, that looks right because it, like, it's like 2 separate sentences because of cause and effect.
Yep.
In the cause, she got 100% because she finished it early.
We have the effect, she got the 100% on the assignment, and then we have the cause, she finished it early. So, how does that conform to the directions here for number 4?
Independent, meaning it's a complete sentence. That's how you, that's where you get the independent part of it, and that's where it's correct, right?
Yeah.
So she got 100% on the assignment,
Yep, so here's
Period.
my independent clause coming first,
right?
meaning that, what is this?
An incomplete sentence, right, or fragment, or whatever?
Yeah, my dependent clause. So, just wanting to kind of reinforce to us that you always know where the dependent clause is, because it's the one that starts with the subordinator. And we can put that at the beginning of the sentence, or we can put it in the middle of the sentence.
So no comma though?
Correct, no comma. How come? Why do I not need a comma right here?
Because is there, I don't know.
No.
Maybe not.
No, you're right. I
I
mean,
mean, because is there, why would you need it? She got 100% on the assignment, comma, because she finished it, because it's like a comma, or it acts like a comma.
yeah, in other words, why do we need this comma here?
Because the subordinate is at the starting of the sentence.
Yeah,
So that's why you need the comma.
therefore it's in the middle of the sentence.
So what is this comma signal to us? Why is it a useful thing to have here as a signal?
Talking about the third sentence,
Yeah, on number 3.
It's the,
and it's a dependent, then independent clause.
Uh-huh.
Does it begin with the subordinator?
Yes. Because,
you're changing the cause and effect, or effect and cause, and that's why you have to have a comma to change the two.
yeah, absolutely. This comma does a really nice job for us. It signals to us that we are moving out of idea 1 into idea 2, right? And the because shows us the logical relationship between these ideas. So when we get down here, where we've got the independent clause first, and then we've got a subordinator, the subordinator itself signals to us that switch from idea 1 into idea 2 here. So therefore, we don't need an extra comma here. We don't need a comma at all. That was just a rule that was decided arbitrarily, right? We just have to follow it. Okay, and finally, number 5, driving fast is fun, although it's dangerous. Now, number 5, we have the instruction to write a sentence using a subordinator to show concession. What is our definition of concession? Can we recall? Yeah, it has something to do with explaining what you think is true, yeah.
Admitting some truth in a conflict.
Okay, yes, so
How's your
you,
nose?
good. some truth in someone else's point of view. But then what does the second half of the sentence do?
Disagrees or points of opinion?
Yeah, it emphasizes your own opinion.
Okay.
Yeah. So, does number 5 follow the pattern of concession that we learned about on
Yes.
Tuesday?
Yes.
No.
Why not?
Why not?
It's very close, it's almost there. I don't.
Shouldn't the although be first?
Yeah, it should be. So let's rewrite this. Although, and who wrote this, remind me again so I can get the wording right? Yeah, so although driving fast is fun. Is fun. What kind of punctuation do I need right here?
Comma.
It is dangerous. Good, so now I have my subordinator right here, right? And then I have the concession part. So this is the dependent clause. And this is the idea I'm conceding to, or this is the idea that like I'm admitting some truth to. And then I have my second idea, and this is the one that I'm emphasizing. So it's easy to remember this concept if you kind of say it out loud like this. Although driving fast is fun, it is dangerous, right? You can hear where the emphasis is, yeah.
So let's say that we wanted to add a subordinator in the middle.
Right.
So should it have been like driving fast is fun even though it's dangerous?
So basically the way we're teaching concession in 104 is that the subordinator always has to come at the beginning.
That's the rule then.
Yeah.
Okay, so if
So-
you remember the rule, then you get it right. Right.
You know, if you were writing a sentence like that in your essay, for example, that would be totally fine. Grammatically, it's correct. It expresses a complete thought. But if you're at your grammar test and it says, combine these two sentences showing concession and emphasizing, you know, sentence A, then you have to know that you're going to follow that subordinator, de-emphasizing, emphasized idea.
So if I have, a good line, that although I like chocolate, comma, I can't eat too much of it,
Perfect.
from that,
Yeah, so then which part are you trying to emphasize in that sentence?
that I can't eat too much.
Yes, precisely. Yeah, very good. Okay, other questions at this point? Good job, you guys. How many of you feel like Unit 5 is pretty easy so far? You got it down.
I put about 8.
Okay. So, I wanted to kind of segue now. Let's see how much time we have.
I got a little confused on number 4, I mean, on the, still, that one.
On Unit 4 or
No, on the
exercise?
question 4.
So basically, if the independent clause comes first, that means the subordinator has to be in the middle of the sentence. Or we have idea 1, subordinator, and then idea 2.
They did too, okay.
Yeah. Okay, so I wanted to segue into telling you a little bit about what you can expect to see on your essays in terms of like grammar feedback.
Uh-oh.
So I haven't read all of them yet, but pretty much the reason why we spend so much time on this grammar stuff and the reason why that we teach it the way we do in 104 is because the most common errors that we see are fragments, fused sentences, and comma splices.
What about run-on sentences? Because that was the hardest thing.
Yeah, so basically, well, let's write it all out. And run-on sentences and fused sentences are pretty much
Okay.
related to each other, but we'll see how they differ. So, to that end, and you might want to write this down somewhere in your notes, if you see a note on your essay, would it be easier for you guys to see if I switched over to this?
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought so. I'll write it over here. So I'm also going to write like content-based notes, you know, like maybe you could expand here more, or I had this question here. But in terms of grammar, the most often sort of notations you're going to see are FRAG period. which, what can you guess that stands for?
Fragment.
Fragment. Which means what?
It's not a complete sentence.
Yeah, incomplete sentence. Either it's missing a subject, a verb, or it doesn't express a complete thought. Did you have a hand up in the back?
No.
And then the second one that you might see is CS. Did I guess what that stands for?
Comma splice.
Comma splice. Now, can we figure out what this is, or have you heard of it before?
Just based off the word splice, it's a comma in where it doesn't need to be, like in between a sentence where it doesn't need to be.
Absolutely, yes, and it's one like particular way of sticking a comma in where it doesn't need to be. Wait, can you say that again?
Couldn't you just fix that problem by turning that comma into a semicolon?
Ah, yes, and we're gonna get to that.
Okay. I never really fully understood the parameters of the correct usage for that
Semicolons?
punctuation. I've always been confused. What is
Okay.
the true meaning? But that's usually what I do.
Right.
Instead of putting it's a comma, gold, semicolon.
And yes, semicolons are a funny piece of punctuation. Good with our phones? Okay. Semicolons are a funny piece of punctuation because a lot of people are mystified by them. A lot of teachers tell you don't bother using them, but at the same time, they're very, very simple to use and very simple to understand how to use. So we'll get to that in a second. But yes, let's go back to comma splice. What does that word splice mean?
I thought it was slice. Sorry, we had a P.
Yes, there's P in there.
Splicing is kind of like injecting, I guess, like putting something that's not normally there, isn't it?
Yeah, so splice is actually a really weird word that has like two contradictory meanings. So if you splice something in some context, that means you're like cutting it in half, right? But also it can mean to splice something together, right? To weave it together. So if you have a comma splice, that means that you are joining two independent clauses with a comma and nothing else. And this is grammatically incorrect. So that would look something like, I went to the mall, oops, I met my sister there. Right, so we've got what should be two sentences, but I'm connecting them together with a comma, and we want to avoid that at all costs. Right?
So would the sentence work if you put the semicolon there?
Yes, it
Yes,
would.
okay.
It would. I want to get this all out first, and then we'll talk about all the ways to fix these things. And then the last one that I mentioned a minute ago is, you'll see FS. What might that stand for?
Fragment.
No.
For sure.
For sure, good point. Yeah, no, sorry.
Fundamental
Fragment
statement?
No.
Fundamental.
No, it's already there.
So it's another
Fragment
word.
splice.
If I just combine these together and I put FS on everything, right? Every area just FS. It stands for fused sentence. So what can you guess this might mean? What does it mean when something is fused?
I don't know, like
Mm-hmm. Almost like a run-on sentence, I guess.
Yeah, so another term would be run-on sentence or run-together sentences. I prefer fused sentence because when we think about run-on sentences, we often think of something that goes on and on and on, right? I went to school, I took a test, I saw my friends, and I go, right, it like keeps going on and you sort of get out of breath reading it. But sometimes fused sentences actually can be really, really short. What if I have something that says, it's okay, I'm fine?
Semicolon.
Why can't this just stand the way it is?
Because too short?
Well, I mean, the shortest sentence,
It doesn't have
you
a
know,
comma?
can be just two
I don't know.
words. Why is this not okay grammatically?
Two sentences or two statements that could stand alone, that are joined together to try to make one sentence.
It's okay.
Yeah.
But they're obviously two different thoughts.
So it's pretty much saying that you can make it two sentences. Well, when you write that, like few sentences, does that just mean like technically this is supposed to be separated, like two separate sentences?
Yes,
Mhm.
yes, yes.
couldn't you, if you were quoting somebody, then that would change again, right? It's okay, I'm fine, when you were answering, if it was in a quote, like,
You mean like dialogue quote?
yes,
Do you still want to observe proper grammar?
right, but you would put the comma in it, right? And then you would quote it around and make it, they stand alone then. I hope so, because we're in trouble, if not.
What do you mean? You mean if I like go like this?
No, it's okay, so, all right, yeah, okay, yes, do that. It's okay, I'm fine, exactly. It's okay, comma, I'm fine.
I feel like you'd be better off if you said, it's okay, he said.
No,
And
no,
then-
but when you're using it in a quote, when you're using it in a quote, so the other way around, you'd have to add the first part of the sentence that you're making the quote for, he said, it's okay, I'm fine. And then it would be, correct, right?
No.
Why?
Let's figure it out. Why? So I'm hearing that this is actually two sentences masquerading as one sentence. So where are the two separate sentences?
It's okay.
It's okay, I'm fine.
They're very short, but they're still sentences. You might get a little bit like tricked because we have our contractions here, right? It's and I'm. But written out, it is okay. I am fine. Where's subject and verb over here?
It
It.
is, it's subject.
And verb is,
I is the subject.
and am is the verb.
Yeah. So we actually have two separate sentences here. So we need something to combine them together if we want them to be in the same sentence. Which leads me to, let's talk about all the different ways that we've learned so far and then ways that we know of actually fixing these things. So the same solutions that you need for comma splices, you can use on fused sentences too, always. So a comma slice and a fused sentence are only different in that the comma slice has a comma and the fused sentence has no comma. But really they're two ways of joining sentences that are not okay. There's like not enough going on there to help them join together. So we have the semicolon. The first one is a semicolon. Actually, the first one is a period, right? Even though they're really short sentences, it's perfectly respectable to say, it's okay, period, I'm fine. It feels short, it feels choppy, but it's actually grammatically fine. Yes. And then the semicolon. Who knows the semicolon rule? How many of you have been told by teachers, just don't bother, just don't use it?
Yeah.
Okay. There's a particular reason we can kind of debunk that. Why?
They
What's
have
that
to,
rule?
they have to kind of have the same or relation one to the other.
In a way. Anybody else know this one? Yeah.
You can do either or, like you could either put a period or a sentence.
Or a semicolon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. What? Yeah, well.
Let's say yeah.
Sometimes when I look up questions in the dictionary, they give you like an example. They usually use a semicolon to separate the two different examples.
Interesting. That, we can get to that. There's basically two semicolon rules. One that you absolutely have to know, and one that's like really rare in particular, and I pretty much say ignore that one, but I can explain that. Yeah.
A semicolon is most commonly used to link two independent clauses that are closely related in thought. And a semicolon is used to join
That's
two
what
or
I
more
thought.
ideas, and as soon as those ideas are given equal position or rank.
That's plagiarism.
Plagiarism, yes, but also a good example of what to do when you don't know the answer to a question. Okay, I'm all excited this time. Yeah, so basically, a semicolon can take the place of a period. So a semicolon is used to connect two independent clauses, right? If you've got a sentence here, and you've got another sentence here. Say you created a fused sentence because you felt like the ideas were so closely linked to each other, you wanted them to be expressed in the same sentence. You would just have to find where that first independent clause ends, stick a semicolon in, and then have your second independent clause. Right there. And like literally, to use a semicolon, that is all you need to know. There is one more particular rule that's really funky that I can explain really quick, but don't worry if it doesn't make sense. So, the other way that you use semicolons is in a list situation. So usually we have a list like, I went to the store and bought apples, eggs, and bananas, right? 3 items, I separate them each with a comma, so that I know where, one item ends and the next item begins. But what if your list is really complicated and long, and each item in the list is actually a phrase in and of itself, and within that phrase, you need to have a comma for some reason? So therefore, you'd have that long phrase, somewhere in there's a comma, and then to signal that I'm moving on to the next item in the list, that's also a long phrase, instead of a comma, I'll use a semicolon right there.
What about a full colon? Because this is a semi one.
Yeah, so the
Just
full
normalize
colon,
colon.
this one, right?
Everyday colon, yes. Why would we use that? Because I see it like in like titles to movies,
Yeah.
or to, again, lists. But with a semicolon, would that be just?
So the
Everyday
colon
bread?
and the semicolon are not interchangeable. They're not the same. They have 2 different jobs altogether. We actually are going to get to a place in the SCW workbook where we have to practice using colons. But pretty much what I like to think of colons as is the grammar equivalent to an equal sign. So you could say something like, I bought 5 things at the store, colon, candy
Here's the
bars,
list.
bread, ice cream, pizza, and apples. So pretty much the colon is like the grammar equivalent of an equal sign. Yeah, but we are going to actually get to that much later in the semester in our SCW work. Okay, so let me see where we are. We have to backtrack a little bit here. So we have our solutions for comma splices and few sentences. You could do a little period. You could do a semicolon. Or now, at this point in the semester, you know 2 more strategies.
You could put and.
You could use a comma, fanboy, a coordinator. Or what else?
Or
Subordinator?
Or a subordinator, yeah.
Subordinator. I got you. I'm there.
Good, so now, when you're writing your essays, when you get them back from me and you see these comments like comma splice or key sentence or work on avoiding comma splices, pretty much you can diagnose them by seeing where have I joined 2 independent clauses together either with nothing, I've just fused them to each other, or I have just tried to join them with a comma, and then you can pick one of these 1, 2, 3, 4 great ways of fixing that issue. Questions at this point?
No, I really want to see the graded paper.
You'll get them on Tuesday, I promise. Other questions right now? Grammar
Are
questions?
we
in
gonna,
general?
are we gonna have another essay that you can do better than the first one?
Absolutely, yes. The semester has just begun.
Oh, yeah.
We're having 2 more unit essays, and then we're doing like a midterm essay and a couple other things. So you'll have plenty of opportunities in this writing class.
I messed up my first one bad.
Okay, so at this time,